So thank you all for joining us today. Welcome to the webinar on UCA Managua and building a better future for Nicaragua. Before we get started, just want to say that, we hope that everything is okay as it can be with both hurricanes having hit in 2 weeks Nicaragua. I understand that it's hit mostly the north coast, and Jorge, you're in Managua, so it might not be as terrible as it's in other parts of the country, but there's heavy rains and a storm basically still in the country. So we hope that you're all safe and sound. So for everyone today, my name is Mariana Palacios. I am the Communications and Global Citizenship Officer at Magis Americas. I will be sort of guiding us through this conversation with Serena, Jorge, and Eduardo. We will have about 45 minutes of discussion among the panelists, and then we'll have 15 minutes for questions. We'll ask you, the participants, to please write your questions in the chat so that we can later address them when we're in the questions portion. So just to give a brief introduction of who our panelists are today, we have Dr. Jorge Huete. He's the Senior Vice President of UCA Managua, the founder and director of the Molecular Biology Center at the university. After completing some time abroad in studies and research, he returned to Nicaragua to build a more solid foundation for scientific education, starting with the Molecular Biology Center at the university. He is an advocate for improving science education and the appropriate usage of biotechnology for development. Welcome, Dr. Huete. We also have Dr. Serena Cosgrove with us today from Seattle University. She's an associate professor of international studies and the director of the Central American Initiative. Dr. Cosgrove teaches courses such as Understanding Global Poverty, Conflict Resolution in Central America, and Research Methods for International Studies. Most of her research applies an intersectional lens to leadership and agency in response to exclusion and repression in Central America and Democratic Republic of Congo. Welcome, Dr. Cosgrove, as well. And then we have Eduardo Jaspica. He is the Development Officer for Individual Giving at Magis Americas. Eduardo has extensive experience in developing projects and programs with youth, immigrants, and refugee populations, as well as projects in social science research in Florida with immigrants as well. So I'm going to hand it over to you, Eduardo. Why don't you tell us a little bit about why we're here today?
Well, thank you very much, Mariana, and good morning to everybody. The main reason why we're here today is that although the protests that the crisis that put Nicaragua on the news in 2018, based on government reforms that triggered a social, political, and economic crisis, has subsided, the Nicaraguan government has continued to increase its abuses of power and human rights violations. Even after the protests have died down and the world has locked down because of COVID-19, it's important to remember that the Nicaraguan government continues to operate and continues to pass new legislation that seeks to cement its hold on power and to silence any opposition. For example, in the past 2 weeks, we have seen how the Nicaraguan government passed legislation, a legislation known as the Foreign Agents Law, which basically classifies any organization that receives income from international organizations or institutions as a foreign agent. That means that anybody that receives foreign aid or any kind of assistance has to be registered with the government. And the government has basically regulated who is trying to regulate how can those organizations operate within the country. So even though Nicaraguan organizations operate in the country, they can still be labeled as foreign agents and be regulated and even forced to not operate further. Additionally, in the last couple of weeks, the government also passed a new cybersecurity law, which its aim is to control what the government deems as fake news. However, the government tends to call fake news anything that they don't agree with, and that can penalize anybody with up to 10 years in prison for just posting news or opinions that go against what the government what the government's line is. This type of legislation and attacks basically threaten the democratic institutions in Nicaragua, and also prevents the full operation of organizations and institutions that voice any kind of dissent or belong to the opposition to the government. Now, the other aspect of this webinar is also to highlight the importance of higher education in Nicaragua. I mean, I was reviewing information about the rates of higher education in Nicaragua, and we can see in a 2017 report by the Nicaraguan Central Bank that currently only 9% of the population has a level of educational attainment of a university degree or higher. And basically what we can see is that those with a university degree on average have 3 times the income as those with elementary school education, which means that the largest population group, which is those with a primary education level, earn 3 times less than people with a university degree. And people with secondary education level only earn half of what those who have a university degree earn on average, which means that in fact education is a great equalizing tool for people to move out of poverty and to increase their standard of living. Furthermore, I can say that, for example, in a recent survey published by UCA, 80% of the people that attended UCA say that thanks to their education there, they have increased their standard of living and experienced social mobility. So it's actually, we can see that those effects in concrete, with concrete evidence, and how effective it is for those in Nicaragua to receive a higher education.
Thank you, Eduardo. Taking into account this current context, as well as what has happened over the past few years, students in universities have played a vital role in denouncing and demonstrating against these human rights violations, some of the ones that Eduardo has just spoken about. One of the institutions that has really taken the lead on this has been la Universidad Centroamericana de Nicaragua, or UCA for short. So I would like to ask Dr. Huete, what is the role UCA plays as Nicaragua faces these challenges? Who is UCA within this whole context? And why is it really in the midst of this whole predicament?
Hi, Marian. Hi, Serena. Hi, Eduardo. Thank you so much for inviting me to speak here. And I'm hoping that we will have internet connection through the whole event. As you know, Nicaragua has experienced 2 continuous, one after the other, hurricanes that have devastated the northeast of Nicaragua and had caused a lot of damage. So this is the day after Hurricane Iota in Nicaragua, and some internet communications are unstable. So I'm hoping that I can go through. But just in case, I just want to say one sentence that I think would summarize what I'd like you to take with you. And it's that the university, just the same as the whole country, has experienced and has demonstrated resilience and commitment to social justice. That is what UCA symbolizes, and that is what Nicaragua also symbolizes for many people. And I say that because we have been celebrating this year the 60th anniversary of the foundation of our university, the first private university in Central America. And through all those years, we have experienced 2 civil wars. We have gone through dictatorships, through many corrupt governments, curfews, riots. We have experienced extreme poverty, numerous hurricanes, earthquakes, tsunamis, volcano eruptions, dengue epidemics, and more recently, the COVID pandemic. How does the country endure so much? And I think it's because we are resilient and we are committed to social justice. And that's why there is a social struggle to improve the situation, to address the structural problems that we face. And although initially our university was meant to provide knowledge for the Nicaragua's elite back in 1960, it quickly changed to welcome students from all backgrounds. The admission process changed drastically in the 70s, and the student became increasingly diverse, especially incorporating more and more women to study at our university. In the 80s, UCA was no longer a school for the sons of the upper class families and has done that through scholarships provided by the state and also by private charitable trusts. Up to 70% of our students receive some kind of scholarships. Since the 70s, UCA has been promoting among students and professors the study of these structural problems that have been affecting Nicaragua. We call it the study of the reality of Nicaragua. And of course, in Central America, by creating critical thinking to address these problems. And we have developed many projects on social justices. And because of that, UCA actually established the first research universities in the countries that were addressing social issues and later on environmental issues as well. I think it would be interesting to address 2 particular moments where the role of the university has been significant in for the whole country and for the history of Nicaragua. And I mean by that the struggle against the Somoza dictatorship. This was through the 60s and the 70s. And the second that I would like to address is how UCA embraced the cause of the popular revolution. So with so many structural problems and many inequities and injustices in Central America, the university tried to address and get people to think about these problems and how the university and our students could address these problems and propose solutions. And of course, as it is well known, the Jesuits during the revolution in Nicaragua, they embraced the cause, believing that the revolution was going to address social inequities, the structural problems of poverty, and with the purpose of empowering the socially ignored population of Nicaragua. We know that that became also a war, and many of UCA students and graduates became leaders of the revolution in the 80s, and also became soldiers to fight the US-backed Contra war. We know how that was damaging for the whole Nicaragua. And since the 90s, the university has been trying to address the problems of peace and injustices in Central America. Indeed, one of our former rectors, Father Armando Lopez, Jesuit, became a martyr, one of the martyrs of El Salvador. So what I want to say is that UCA's history is tightly intertwinkled with the history of Nicaragua, absolutely connected and committed to addressing these social issues. More recently, since 2018, Nicaragua has experienced serious difficulties by a decade of the Ortega regime. And in one sentence, what I would say is that this regime started by being autocratic and has ended up becoming totalitarian and demolishing all democratic institutions, which has also affected the institution of the academia as a whole. So what has happened is that this kind of regime has tried to dominate universities. And obviously that has created problems at the University of Central America. And when in 2018, there was a rebellion that was led basically by its students. The government addressed this national rebellion with state violence, and especially against university students. Many of the students that were leading the movement had come from UCA. And of course, in facing this state violence that led to the brutal murder of more than 500 people in Nicaragua, and this is well documented by international human rights organizations, our university had to speak out in defense of the students. And because of that, in particular, our rector came out in defense of the lives of the students. This was Father Jose Alberto Idiaquez. And he came out openly to discuss the difficulties of the countries and calling for the defense of human rights of the Nicaraguan people. And these brave actions by Father Idiaquez and by the directorship of university led to serious contradictions with the regime, which has been trying to undermine the work of the university. So, you know, what we do as a university with values, with Jesuit values, is that we are committed to providing the best quality of education, but with values. So we have highly qualified professors, research institutes, and many projects that try to help the communities throughout Nicaragua. We provide assessments of many of the problems that Nicaragua faces and try to propose ways out, ways to address these issues. So after 60 years, UCA is moving forward with its commitment to social justice in the region. In a sense, it's exactly what we say about Jesuit universities. While in campus our students learn and live a fulfilling life, they also improve their personal and professional careers with Jesuit values. And they're also exposed to the reality around us, all the while preparing to improve the world in which we live. As we say in Jesuit universities, we prepare the best for the world. I'd like to stop there and then take more questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Huete. I think that was a very, vivid and holistic view of really history of the university, history of Nicaragua, and then really bringing it down to what the current situation is today. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Aside from, from taking on this responsibility, I think, and from what you said, really stemming from the values of the university, right? UCA Managua has also worked on strengthening its relations with other institutions outside of the country, some in the US and some all over the world. So we would like to really go in a little bit now on, and this is a question for, I think maybe Dr. Cosgrove, you could help us with this, is what is the relationship that UCA Managua has with US institutions or universities outside of what Nicaragua is? And then maybe a little bit also about why these relationships are so important, right?
Thank you so much for inviting me to participate today. It's always an honor to be sharing the screen with Dr. Huete and Mariana. Lovely to meet you today. And Eduardo, thank you for all of your accompaniment of the UCA. I don't have a hurricane going by me right now, but I am actually transmitting from Eastern Washington, and the snow has the eastern part of the state of Washington, and snow has just started falling. So if I lose transmission, I want to start by just summing everything up in one sentence, which is Seattle University is so grateful to everything that we learn by being in partnership with the UCA. Seattle University is a better Jesuit university because of our partnership with the UCA. So I'd love to just talk a little bit about that and why this partnership has been so important. And then I'll hand it back off to you all. Jorge, just so you know, when we were talking about whether or not you were going to be able to connect because of the hurricane, I said, oh, no problem. I'm a professor. I can talk forever. So Mariana, please just jump in if I start going on too long. Seattle University for decades had been sending delegations once a year, a delegation of professors. There was even a couple of years where it was students to go to the UCA, talk in between different colleagues from Seattle University and the UCA, students meeting with students. And it must have been back about 7 years ago, a delegation came up from the UCA. And in conversation with our president, Father Steve Sumborg, he said, global engagement is really important right now for Jesuit universities. And he said to the rector or president of the UCA at the time, let's solidify this relationship. Let's grow this relationship. And so a memorandum of understanding was signed. We think of our relationship as being sister universities and accompanying each other through the opportunities that present themselves and the challenges that present themselves. One of the things from Seattle University that we've been very much aware of is the history of the United States in Nicaragua. I'm not a historian. I'm an anthropologist and a sociologist, so I won't launch off into the long history of United States foreign policy vis-a-vis Nicaragua. But let me just say that back in the mid-1800s, William Walker, a mercenary from the United States, made his way down to Nicaragua and declared himself president. So that's just one example, all the way back to the 1800s. So one of the things that Seattle University has been very much aware of from the very beginning is the importance of a horizontal relationship and a relationship of mutual learning and mutual support. And so one of the things that has happened is that when there are protests going on in Seattle, then Father Chepe, Father Idiaques, the rector of the UCA, will call and talk to Father Steve Sumborg. Hey, how are you doing there with the protests that are going on in Seattle? When there are student protests going on, UCA professors will say, oh, geez, I had no idea we had so much in common. And that has been, that spirit of accompanying each other has very, very much informed the partnership. So initially, I started out the faculty coordinator for what we called the Nicaragua initiative. And then one day, Father Chepe, the rector of the UCA, sat me down and he's like, Serena, why just Nicaragua? Because there are themes that are transversal across Central America. Why doesn't Seattle University have these kinds of partnerships with the Jesuit University in El Salvador and the Jesuit University in Guatemala? So now I'm the faculty coordinator of the Central America Initiative for Seattle University, with 3 partnerships, one with the UCA in Managua, one with the UCA in San Salvador, and one with Rafael Landivar University in Guatemala. And again, that just speaks to the generosity of spirit of Father Chepe and of the leadership team at the UCA. Not just wanting to hang on to things for themselves, but really wanting to serve all of Central America. So that's, in a nutshell, the relationship between the UCA and Seattle University. Why is that relationship important? You know, at first, I just saw how it was important for Seattle University. I saw that when my students were collaborating on research with students in Nicaragua, I saw that not only were they developing cross-cultural competencies, but I saw that they were looking at their own lives differently. So that I think sometimes it's easy, especially in these hard times that we find ourselves in, to think that, oh, the challenges I'm facing right now with quarantine are the most significant. But the thing is that, for instance, my students right now have been doing shared projects with students at the UCA, and all of a sudden, one of the things that they're saying is that this, oh, I don't have a hurricane moving through. Oh, maybe things are challenging politically here in the United States, but that's nothing compared to what is going on in Nicaragua. Students seeing their own lives in different perspective. And for a number of my colleagues professors who have the opportunity to share their classrooms with UCA professors, it's a similar set of lessons learned. And then also for Seattle University's administrators that are in touch with their counterparts at the UCA. You know, it's not easy to be a university right now with COVID going on, and yet the provost from Seattle University will say, how can we be supportive of the UCA at this time, given the challenges that they're facing? So initially I thought, oh, it's just that Seattle University is learning so much. But now I think I've come to see how we can be supportive of the UCA in the very, very big challenges that they're facing. You know, this week, so today is November 18th, November 16th, 31 years ago, 6 Jesuit priests, a former rector of the UCA in Managua, and their housekeeper and her daughter were assassinated on the campus of the UCA in San Salvador 31 years ago. Central America has a precedent for how repressive governments treat institutions of higher learning that are committed to critical education. When Dr. Wette talks about we prepare the best for the world, that means that those are students that want to contribute to making their university make their university and their society inclusive places. And what that means is speaking truth to power. So one of the things that's just had me very, very concerned since April of 2018 is what is the global community, universities and Catholic Catholic institutions and Jesuit institutions and folks around the world who are committed to critical education. What can we do to stand in solidarity with the UCA? And so that's something that I spend a lot of time thinking about. And that takes a number of different forms. So it's collaborative research, trying to spread the word about what's going on in Nicaragua. It's continuing to accompany UCA students and UCA professors as they're facing the challenges of teaching online. And it's really thinking about how we can be of greater service to the UCA. Thank you.
Thank you, Serena. I think that, you know, what I think stuck most for me out from your whole reflection, I think, is really the idea of, and connecting with Dr. Huetes, of, you know, developing these professionals that are going to be the best people in the world, and then also how it connects to both institutions really working to provide an education that goes beyond the classroom, right? That it goes really more into who these individuals are becoming as people. I think, and we went into a little bit here, but I would like to get a much deeper perspective, maybe call it that, on Dr. Huete. Maybe you can guide us through this. What other things, aside from these collaborations with institutions like Seattle University, have been done to support the UCA in the past few years?
Thank you. Well, I think, you know, the international cooperation is the key, because we want to do this together. You know, the concept is that through these collaborations, both parts take something. And for us, it's very important to get assistance to solve our own problems. So some of those examples that Serena was mentioning are really the tradition and the important ways how we address our projects. But more recently, since 2018, we have been going through the network of Jesuit universities in the Americas, but also throughout the world. And this includes all sorts of different projects. You know, this includes cooperation between teachers, professors, you know, teaching different courses, but also research, joint research between different universities. We have been really concerned, especially since 2018, when, as you know, Nicaragua has been going down financially, and so is the funding from the government, from the state to the universities. So we have addressed ways to support the activities of the university. So we have been promoting different activities to gather funding for the projects of the university. In particular, we're really concerned about our possibilities of keeping the scholarships for students. As I was saying in my presentation, the majority of our students come from humble working class background, and this is a specific mission of our university. We want to work with these students because we feel that that's the way to develop our country. You know, we're very lucky to be working in education, which is a great opportunity to improve the world. And we want to do that with people from disadvantaged backgrounds. And we want to be able to keep doing that. But because of the financial situation in the country and the university, we feel that we need to get more assistance in that direction. And then in addressing these structural problems, you know, we also would like to have assistance in reaching out for international funds, international grants, charitable trusts, all sorts of way that could help us continue providing this high quality education and the mission of the university as a Jesuit university.
Great, thank you very much. And I think this is a great leeway into talking a little bit more about the relationship now with Magis Americas, right? And Eduardo, I would like to ask you, why is Magis Americas involved in projects with UCA Managua? And, why did they partner with them? Just tell us a little bit about that.
Sure, Mariana, thanks. Well, to understand how the partnership between UCA and Magis Americas came about, first we need to learn a little bit about the history of Magis Americas. Magis Americas was founded in 2005, and we operate in Washington, D.C. as a certified 501c3 nonprofit organization. Since 2010, Magis has been a shared organization between the Conference of Canada and the United States for the Jesuits and the Conferencia de Provinciales en América Latina y el Caribe. So we're working with both Jesuit conferences jointly. And since Magis Americas is committed to ensuring quality, to ensuring access to a quality and inclusive education, the right to migration, and the protection of the environment, UCA is an ideal partner for us to work with. For us, these three pillars are fundamental when it comes to working with Jesuit organizations in Latin America and the Caribbean, because for us, that is what will help to build a just, dignified, and equitable society. Besides UCA, we also work with organizations such as Fe y Alegría, la Red Jesuita con Migrantes, Servicio Jesuita a la Panamazonía, and of course, UCA. The two reasons why we partner with UCA are mainly our shared Jesuit identity and our shared priorities. Because of our shared Jesuit identity, Magis supports Jesuit organizations and networks internationally, mainly in Latin America and the Caribbean, in order to, like I said before, to build that just, dignified, and equitable society. UCA, as Dr. Huete mentioned, has a long tradition of promoting social justice through service, and their numerous social programs make our support a lot more impactful. Because since UCA has the students practicing for their careers directly with the populations, that means that supporting UCA is not only supporting the students themselves and the university, but a large group, a large part of the population in Nicaragua that are in a vulnerable state and would not have access to the services that UCA provides in any other way. And we can see that basically that ripples throughout Nicaragua at various different levels. Therefore, partnering with an organization like UCA is basically, in essence, part of our mission. Then the other reason that we have partnered with UCA has been our shared priorities. Both Magis Americas and UCA, we view education as a tool for social transformation. Also for us, as an organization, Central America and education are priorities when it comes to our area of work. And additionally is the fact that we both are working together to achieve the Sustainable Development Goal number 4, which is to ensure an inclusive and equitable quality education and to promote lifelong learning opportunities for everybody.
Thank you, Eduardo. I think we've had a very rich conversation about the history of UCA, its trajectory, its impact on Nicaragua, and its role throughout Nicaragua throughout that history, as well as what the current situation is now. I'd like to, and I know we only have about 15 minutes left, but I really like to ask this question before we go on to the question portion of the webinar, and that's looking towards the future, right? Because we've talked about the past and our current situation now. Looking towards the future, why is it important to support UCA Managua for Nicaragua and for Central America and beyond? If Dr. Huete, if you can start us off.
Well, we've discussed the important role that the university has played throughout history, but more recently, particularly because of the current situation, meaning the socio-political crisis that is not resolved in Nicaragua. UCA has become an icon of democracy and the struggle for human liberties in Nicaragua. I think that would be very hard to say about other universities or other academic institutions throughout Central America. And I believe that because of this principle of believing in human rights and the struggle for social justice throughout the region, UCA deserves a better attention, than what has been so far paid to. I think that by helping our university fulfill our mission, we would be helping address structural problems of Nicaragua. And this should be a concern to all humanity. When we are facing human rights issues, we are addressing problems that are very dear to all of us humans. And I think that UCA has done really well in addressing these issues, in being an advocate for these struggles, and I think it deserves solidarity. So I think that when we go in collaboration with different universities, different programs throughout the world, we're addressing the problems that are very dear to all of us. And I think that UCA deserves solidarity and support for what its mission is doing.
Great, thank you. I guess, Eduardo, could you now tell us, and I think that that's a great way of describing why we need to support. So I think it's important to also talk about, as individuals, right? Not only just institutions like we've seen, what could be done to support?
Well, currently for people in the United States, there are three main things that can be done to support. The first one is to build awareness. Part of our role as an organization is to share the story of UCA and what is going on in Nicaragua. So, if people are interested in helping us to build awareness, the best thing that can be done is to share the story of UCA on social media platforms. I mean, tell your friends and your family what you've learned about UCA here today, and encourage them to learn more about the history of UCA and the major role it has played throughout the modern Nicaraguan history. And also one very important thing when you're sharing this information is that you can follow us on social media, on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, at Magis Americas, where we're regularly putting updates of our work with UCA and the impact that is having. The second thing that can be done is to be an advocate, and that the best way to do it is to sign up for our newsletter, for Magis Americas newsletter by visiting our website, magisamericas.org/join-the-we, and also to write to your members of Congress. That is a very important part of it. because it's not only creating awareness within the general population, but also within the government. And the important thing is to write to them and urge them to protect the human rights in Central America, and particularly in Nicaragua, where, as we have seen, they are under constant attack. The final thing that that can be done here from the United States is to help UCA, is to directly raise funds. One of the best things that you can do right now is to make a donation to support UCA. And you can support UCA Managua anytime by visiting our website, magisamericas.org/donate, and select UCA Managua from our drop-down menu. Likewise, I'd just like to say that Magis America's Giving Tuesday campaign this year will be focused in supporting UCA. So any donations that we receive for Giving Tuesday are going to go directly to UCA and its scholarship programs.
Thank you, Eduardo. Before I do sort of closing remarks, I'd like to ask Dr. Huete or Dr. Cosgrove if you have anything else that you would like to comment that you feel that wasn't really addressed in the questions that we had.
Jorge, do you have anything you want to say first?
We think about it. Why don't you go ahead?
You know, one of the things that I spend time thinking about is that the role that the UCA in Managua is playing is extremely important, and I think needs support. And when I think about this, I don't just think about it as those of us in the United States and the global North that might have become more aware of Central America in the 1980s and early 1990s as part of that kind of broad solidarity movement. I'm not just thinking about those of us that have a long relationship with Central America, but I'm also thinking about the important role that critical higher education plays in these these times. And so when we look at the constraints that the UCA is moving forward with, it seems to me that that the need to support them is even more important. So not just facing a world where universities are under neoliberal constraints, not just continuing education in a country where there has been no state mandated response to COVID, not just continuing to move forward in facing government repression, yet having to face all of these challenges. I know, at least for us at Seattle University, that that we see that the challenges that the UCA is facing could potentially be issues that we face, and really wanting to stand in solidarity, support them, and raise all of us up, and really stand firm for critical higher education in the Americas.
Yes, I like the way Serena's putting it. And I think I also like to mention that those ideas, specific ideas that Eduardo was addressing, are important. And I think the university has a number of concrete projects and ideas for which we could, request cooperation. And I think going through those different ideas would make it more concrete to provide help, to the work that the university is doing. And in all of this, we also would like to express our sincere gratitude to everyone that has been involved in solidarity throughout history, but more recently also with the programs that the university has been developing. I think it's very exciting for many people abroad when they come to Nicaragua and they see the reality being addressed properly through education and through social programs that the university is leading. And this is very fulfilling also to the students, professors, and people that get involved. And some of this was told already by Serena very well. But I think that people should look at it also as a very exciting projects to develop and that are very fulfilling for their lives as well. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Dr. Witten, Dr. Cosgrove, and Eduardo for this very, I think, rich and I think insightful as well conversation. I think we touched on a lot. I know I'm leaving very inspired and with a lot of respect for the UCA as an institution and also for the people of Nicaragua. So we only have about 4 minutes left, but I would like to take this time to see if anybody in the audience has any questions they would like to ask. You can ask them by writing them on the chat, and then we can probably get through one or two before going over time. Just give a couple minutes for that. All right. Let's see. So what has been the university doing in these times of crisis to adjust, given the fact that there are different crises from the ones that they had lived through before? Speaking specifically to Corona and now the hurricanes.
Well, that's actually a very good point because the university under these circumstances has to be very flexible in everything that it does, but it also has to show creativity. And we're very lucky that we have been very creative in solving many of the problems. You know, for example, since 2018, we've had many difficulties in coming into campus. Before the pandemic, you know, this was because in the country, it was totally unrest and it was very difficult to reach the university. And, you know, the government has been chasing students, you know. So we went for a time, we had to transfer quickly into an online system. You know, so we, although we did have a lot of experience in online classes, we had to move quickly to prepare more classes. And it's incredible how quickly the professors and students adjusted to the new way of working. And more recently, when the pandemic came, we actually were prepared, you know, to turn most of our classes to online. So I think that's one of the examples of things that one has to do under these difficult circumstances. But also, you know, the other issue is that we need to act according to principles and the values that the university promotes. And many of the challenges, whenever they are social political, you know, we have to stand by the values that we defend. And I think that also demands unwavering, you know, and to be really strong and to be committed to the values that you promote.
Thank you very much, Dr. Huete. Well, we have reached our time to respect the time of everyone that's joined us. I'd like to thank all of you who joined from the United States or from Nicaragua, or from wherever you are in the world, as well as Dr. Huete, as well as Dr. Cosgrove and Eduardo. It's been a great conversation, and hopefully we can have many more like this, where we learn a little more each time and find new ways to keep collaborating and supporting UCA Managua. Thank you all.
Much.
Thank you.
Goodbye.
Take care.